In 1959, Ram was involved in the prosecution of K.M. Nanavati, Commander K.M. Nanavati. Commander Nanavati was an officer in the Indian Navy, handsome at that, who had settled down in Bombay with his English-born wife and their children. With Nanavati being away from home on long assignments at sea, Sylvia found companionship with Nanavati's friend Prem Ahuja. Sylvia confessed about her affair to Nanavati on his return from his assignment. Enraged by the confession, Nanavati went to the naval base to collect his pistol and then went to confront Ahuja. According to Nanavati's account, he had asked if Ahuja would marry Sylvia and accept their children. On hearing a negative response, he fired 3 bullets, and not unexpectedly, Ahuja just dropped dead. The case was tried by the jury, the last case that we ever tried by a jury in India. The issue before the jury was whether Nanavati shot the victim in the heat of the moment, or whether it was premeditated murder. Ram was hired as a watching counsel by the sister of the victim. His role was to protect the victim and help with the prosecution strategy. There was a great Chari who was appearing in that case. The public prosecutor followed the line of questioning developed by Ram, and theatrical it was. He asked the surgeon on the stand why the victim would start the alleged fight without his glasses on, and how the 2 protagonists could have got into such a scuffle that the gun would go off accidentally with a towel wrapped around the waist of Prem Ahuja, undisturbed. The case was sensationalized, and the jury was overawed with emotions for Nanavati and handed him an acquittal. However, if the judge wanted to send the case to the High Court for reconsideration, they had to prove that the jury was under wrong instructions. A decision of the jury could be overturned on very limited grounds. It was Ram Jethmalani who wrote the brief for the prosecution lawyer, then Mr. Y.V. Chandrachud, pointing out 8 instances of jury misdirection. The argument of jury misdirection was accepted. When the case was heard by the High Court, it found merit in the arguments of the prosecution and convicted Nanavati. But there's a story, there's a sting in the tail which Ram himself told me about. He said when the case opened, the entire court was hostile to the government pleader, namely Justice Chandrachud, who was then arguing the case. He says on the last day after the conviction had been rendered, Justice Shelat turned to the government pleader and said, "Mr. Chandrachud, so are you pressing for death?" Virtually indicating that if you argue for death, this was a case for the imposition of the death penalty. And we didn't have Bachchan Singh in those days, mind you. And the public prosecutor got up and said, "My lords, I've got the conviction, but this is not a case for the award of the death penalty." And eventually, he was sentenced to imprisonment for life. The appeal against the conviction was also dismissed by the Supreme Court, but he got a pardon thereafter. There really began the friendship between my own parents and Ram and Ratna, which continued almost to the last day of their lives. Ram had the wit and vigor to work within the minute gaps and the gray areas of law. That is what set him apart from the rest of them. As a criminal lawyer, he was known for his art of cross-examination, bravado, and wit. He approached his cases with an investigative lens, an important craft for every criminal lawyer. He would ask for plausible explanations and give an astute psychological analysis of what a person normally would or would not do. Ram had that innate ability in him, which only the best of the criminal lawyers have, of recreating a crime scene